Let's get sweaty.
My guest on the dojo today comes from the world of anime voiceover, and I'm really excited to have him on the show. Having done lots of work across anime, including titles called After the Rain, Devil's Line, Getter Robo Arc, and more, he's found his way into the Shenmue community as the voice of Dolnio. But more than that, he's been interacting with us as fans on Twitter and been getting involved and really giving the anime a good, hard, solid push since he's been announced as his character. My guest today is the voice of Dolnio, Joe Daniels. So, Joe, welcome to the Shenmue Dojo interview series. How are you doing on this fine Monday?
Happy to be here. I'm ready to talk about Shenmue. I've been having this on my plate for a little while, and I'm excited to get to share it with everybody.
Excellent. So, before we jump into the Shenmue stuff and the anime and everything around it, could you sort of give me a brief career tour, so how you got into performing arts and then voiceover for anime and sort of your path into the industry?
Sure, absolutely. So I started acting, stage acting, my sophomore year of high school. So I suppose grade 10. I wasn't very good, and I'm still not. But I went to school for musical theater after that. I went to college or university for musical theater. Spent 4 years there, got my degree, and then pretty much immediately the plague happened after that,
Yeah.
and so all theater dropped dead, and so that was fun, but not directly after. But while I was in musical theater, I met Bryson Bogus, one of my
Yeah.
very good friends, and a very, very talented voice actor. And he was, this is when he was just starting to get like some big roles at Sentai Filmworks. And he had just gotten the lead in Haikyuu, a very popular volleyball anime. I'm sure if you're into anime, you know Haikyuu. Uh, and he said, "Hey, I just need they need like a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
So can I submit some of your names, some of me and my other friends, to Sentai, and then maybe they'll call you in."
Cool.
And
Yeah.
so I was like, "Sure, go ahead." And he did, and the call was very soon afterwards. And I thought I would just go in and do a little bit of walla, a little bit of background noise. And they were like, "Oh, here's this name character. Go ahead and do the thing." Uh, and so, needless to say, I was terrified. But I did it, and evidently, it was decent enough to bring me back in. And that was 4.5 years ago, and here I am.
Wow. It's still fairly recent then. So what are some of the sort of the notable animes that you've worked on in that 4.5 year period?
Sure, sure. I mean, obviously, Haikyuu is one of like the biggest ones that I've worked on.
Yeah.
I played So Inuoka as well as Ushiwaka. I was in Food Wars season 2 as Abel Blondin, season 3 as Rentaro Kusunoki. I was in Saint Seiya Knights of the Zodiac as Cerberus Knight Dante. I was in the remount or the redub of the 80s Saint Seiya as Cerberus Knight Dante and Kraken Isaac. I was in Danmachi, or Is It Wrong to Pick Girls in a Dungeon, as Hyacinth in season 2 and Lido in season 3.
That's a massive range of sort of anime works that you've been on. And do you have any sort of particularly, with the exception of Dolnio, who we're going to talk about in a bit, are there any sort of particularly favourite characters out of those that you voice?
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, Thorkel was interesting, if only because there are two dubs of Vinland Saga out there.
Yeah.
And that was a weird thing that was happening. And Patrick Seitz did an absolutely amazing job. The guy who played Thorkel in the other dub, um, but that was probably one of the most fun characters that I've ever voiced. he's just so boisterous and so weird and so crazy and so bloodthirsty. Just an absolute insane combination, but you love the character, and I loved voicing it. That and my other favorite role is probably Momoharu from an anime called Hiro no Sora. It's a basketball anime, but it's more like a slice of life,
Yeah.
and it's not a very popular anime, but it's very popular to me.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. So moving into Shenmue, the animes, and Shenmue itself. Obviously, Shenmue started out as a game series. It's over 20 years old now. Had you heard of the games before the anime was mentioned?
Yes, yeah, I did. I played Shenmue 1 when I was younger.
Yeah.
Uh, I didn't play Shenmue 2, funnily enough. Um, but I knew about Shenmue 2 and Shenmue 3
Yeah.
later on. I mean, Shenmue 3 obviously was a lot later on than
Yeah.
Shenmue
Yeah.
2. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I knew about the games because I played the first one. uh, and so I knew kind of like what it was about. And the thing is I whenever it all came together, I got called in for the anime. I was like, this seems odd, just because the voice acting in that game is so so very iconic. I
Yes.
would
Yeah.
say. And so whenever they called me in, I was like, wow, I sincerely hope they're not asking me to voice match these voices, but they weren't. And so I was appreciative of that.
Brilliant. And what did you make of the first game when you played it? I mean, it's a long time ago, possibly.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I was quite young at the time. But I mean, I played the hell out of it. I beat the hell out of it. I loved, the QTE sequences.
Yeah.
I loved just walking around investigating. It was a great game. It was one of my favorites when I was younger.
And have you played Shenmue 2 or 3 since then, or have you not had the chance?
I haven't had the chance, but I have watched, a few playthroughs, and I've watched a few reviews and whatnot.
Yeah, okay. And are you going to pick them up, or is it just it's on the list sort of thing?
Oh, at this point, yeah, no, definitely.
Shenmue's obviously got its roots in the games. The anime gets announced. The community were quite surprised by it. I think it took a lot of people by surprise, left field. But again, more Shenmue the better in our books. What was sort of the process for you getting involved with the anime and eventually into playing Dolnio himself?
Whew, yeah. It was, man, it was an interesting situation. So I got called in at what I think is, of course, I'm just an actor. What I think is the very beginning of production for like the
Yeah,
first round of auditions, where I auditioned for like Landi and Rio and like
yeah,
all the main cast, as well as
yeah,
like a bunch of the supporting cast. And not Dou Niu, since he comes in a little later. I mean, we rolled on like every single character, and if I remember correctly, I mean, this was a little while ago, but if I remember correctly, there was no animation to go off of. It was just the script, and we just sort of went. They gave us the character breakdown, and
yeah.
I walked in, and they handed me the character breakdown, and I said, "Uh, I I think I know these characters." Because they can't tell you exactly what you're auditioning for at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really have to do any research or read the papers. I was like, I know these people. So I felt that was the moment that I was like, oh man, if I have to voice match some of these voice actors, I don't know that I'm gonna be able to do it. But I went in there and we did it, and evidently I did fine, but just not well enough to land any of the main cast. But hey, don't get me wrong, I'm glad with where I landed.
Brilliant. And just out of interest, do you remember any of the sort of rough character descriptions that you were given? Obviously, they didn't name names at that point when you were auditioning, but do you remember any particular sort of key traits they described of any of the main cast?
I remember a bit of Blondie's where they were. He was supposed to be. I think it said like the pinnacle of badass or something like that.
Okay.
Just like the not the not even thinking about others' prowess. just
Yeah,
because he's so good.
brilliant. That's cool. That's nice to hear. It's interesting how you made that link to the main characters is interesting because obviously you've played the original game, so you think, oh, that might be Landy. You think, okay, it's interesting to see him described like height of being a badass. Actually, he is.
Mhm.
He
Oh,
is actually.
absolutely a badass.
And actually, I think that comes over in the first episode, probably a little bit more than in the game, where I know he has a darker edge to him in the anime. I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. The just the artistry of the anime, I think, lends itself to a very much a deeper story, which I very much appreciate.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, you went to your audition. You got sort of cast in as Dolnio. Did they give you a character brief for him, and what was it when you were given it?
Uh, no. So whenever I auditioned for Dou Niu, it was about 3 months after that, the first initial audition, and I was going in for a session of Get a Robo arc where I played Baku
Yeah,
with Joey Gabod, the director of Shenmue. He's a phenomenal director. He also directed Get a Robo. And I had finished early, and he said, "Hey Joe, can you stick around for a second? We have this character that we're having trouble casting."
yeah,
And I said, "Oh yeah, sure, no worries. What is it for?" And he was like, "Oh, it's for Shenmue." And I was like, "Oh, I haven't heard about that in about 3 months." Um, and he throws some animation up on the screen, and it's the first scene with Dou Niu, which I'm not going to spoil.
no, yeah,
Um, I drop my voice real low, and I make it real big, and we do the whole scene. And he says, "Yeah, I mean, it's probably the best we've heard so far. So I'll see what everybody thinks, and we'll get going on that." And a couple weeks later, they call me in,
nice,
and I get to yell and scream and be no Donnie.
brilliant. Okay, so I remember we had a very sort of quick interaction on Twitter about Dolnio. I think we described him as bowling ball man or something.
Absolutely.
um, what sort of character traits did you like about him or dislike as you got into the role, as you got into recording? What did you sort of pick up about him?
Plenty of things to dislike about the guy.
Yeah,
I mean, he's just a bad person, first of
yeah,
all. Yeah, I mean, he's uh, he's awful. I mean, he's all about, he's the embodiment of like greed and gluttony and everything else. But things that I love about Doniu, the fact that he's like almost impervious to damage, it seems.
yeah,
I love there's this one part, and I'm sure if you play the games, it's nothing new to you, where uh, Ren and Rhea are running away from Doniu, and they nimbly dodge down some steps,
yeah.
and Doniu, chasing after them, trips, rolls down the stairs, slams into the back wall, gets up, and then charges down the next set of stairs, all in the manner of like 3 seconds. And getting to voice all of that is just hilarious. All the while just screaming at the top of my lungs. Um, so that that's something to love about Doniu. As well as the fact that he is very dedicated to his hostile takeover of Hong Kong. I'll
Yeah,
give him that.
yeah, that translates from the games where he's very much into he wants to own Hong Kong, and you say about him falling down the stairs, it just that fits his character in the games. Where a few times I think if anybody's played the games, you'll recognize this where he goes to stamp on Rio when he's on the floor, and he
Mm-hmm.
goes through the floor,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just
Mm-hmm.
sat there going, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you." That fits him. So him
Yep.
falling down the stairs is exactly the sort of thing that fits his character from the games in my book. So it's awesome to hear that they've kept that essence of him while making him what seems to be very much larger than life. Is that fair?
Oh, 100%. 100%. If anyone is, it's definitely Donio.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, very, very much so. So going into the recording itself, how was it all done? Were you doing sessions on your own, or were you bouncing off of other people? What did you have like footage in front of you? How is it all sort of done and put together?
So it's the director is the director and the engineer in the booth, or in the room next to the booth. It's just the actor alone in the booth with
Yeah.
the script and the anime on two different screens. Um, and we just sort of roll through it
Hmm.
by ourselves. There's no one else, no other actors present, anyways. But oftentimes, depending upon timing, you might have another actor's reads with you
Yeah.
in there if they've already gone through it. And a lot of the time, Joey would call people back in if he decided on a sentiment of a line that sort of didn't work with a different sentiment
Hmm.
of like a different read. And so he would call people in for pickups just to say like, "Hey, this line we sort of changed a little bit of the phrasing, and so we wanted you to come in and like reestablish this line, put a different emphasis or a different wording on it."
Yeah.
Just so it makes more sense with this. So in a way, it was that sort of like collaborative actor work, if only because like those things were sort of managed and
Yeah.
picked up.
Okay, that sounds good. And roughly speaking, how long do you think it took for you to record all of his lines?
Hours in the booth, I would say about to get all of Dou Niu, maybe like 6 or 7, maybe closer to 8.
Chris, and was that set across a whole day, or was it broken down into sort of different chunks?
Oh, it was broken down. I would have collapsed from exhaustion if it was over in just one day. There was way too much screaming.
I was about to say, if you're screaming at the top of your lungs, I can hear him in my head actually when asking that question. If you're screaming, yeah, that would take its toll on your voice very quickly, I'd imagine.
Yeah, we broke the screaming up. We had our final day of recording. Tony was just screaming.
Just screaming. Brilliant, brilliant. Um, So, sort of talking about your recording, are there any particular favourite moments from recording your lines for Dolnio that you'd like to talk about or can talk about?
Sure, sure. Let me make sure I don't. Let me make sure I don't give anything away though.
Yeah, of course.
There are a few times that I get to talk to Jan,
Yeah,
and I love those moments. If only because he's such a different person when he's talking to Jan. And my one of my very good friends, the one of my best friends, Blake Jackson,
yeah,
plays Jan, and he does a wonderful job. And so it was absolutely amazing getting to act alongside him in that, and for him to be um, my Jan. But the defending of the amount of like companionship that they have with each other, that was a super fun part to play, just because it was so different than like screaming raging Donu.
yeah,
And then of course the part where the finale of Donu, whenever he gets to actually fight and not just barrel down hallways and scream.
and when he gets, well, if you played the games, you know what happens in terms of his comeuppance.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And I won't spoil whether or not it's in the anime. I will just say that it was fun.
Excellent. And obviously, acting with your best friend, do you think that sort of added another dynamic to sort of the two characters together on screen?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, no, it definitely there was definitely more of a connection between those two characters, if only because it was Blake and I. Not to like toot my horn, it's just me and my best friend of 20 years have chemistry. Go
Yeah,
figure.
of course.
Yeah.
And was that a deliberate thing to cast Blake as Yuan, or was that completely coincidental?
I think it was entirely and completely coincidental. I don't know that Joey knows that we've been friends for 20 years.
Ah, so it's all worked out very well then in the end.
I suppose so.
Brilliant. And sort of going into the anime itself, obviously the first episode aired. I absolutely adored it as a Shenmue fan of 20 years. I think it set the bar really, really high. Having watched it yourself and seen the reaction to it, were you taken aback by sort of the reaction of Shenmue fans whose community has been strong in this for a long, long time, and also new people coming in from anime circles who may not have heard of Shenmue before? Did it sort of the universally positive response sort of take you by surprise almost because we didn't know what we were getting.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if took by surprise is the right thing. I think I was just waiting and just holding my breath
Yeah,
for like a couple days as people were, like the hype on Twitter and whatnot
yeah,
sort
yeah,
of like built and everyone was getting excited. I think I was just sort of just holding that breath in and just really hoping. And then whenever, it happened and people were tweeting about it and they said like, wow, I like people were admiring how faithful it was
yeah,
to like some of the major scenes, and people enjoyed the further backstory on Rio, and I was like, that's super cool.
yeah, definitely.
And so it was it was awesome. I mean, like, it was more of just like a relief sigh
Yeah,
after everything happened. It just sort of like my heart just rose again and I could breathe. And it was really nice. I mean, it got me excited for when Dou Niu comes up, because I think, with how faithful I know that things are, I feel like people will be able to enjoy it a lot easier.
yeah, and it very much is very faithful to the games. I think in terms of what we've seen from one episode. Obviously, there's going to be changes. It's a different interpretation of the games, and we know as we've both played them, the games are quite slow paced at points, so they're going to have to take sort of move things on a bit quicker. I think is probably the fairest thing to say. But actually, in the first episode, it worked really well, and the story elements from the games with the new bits and pieces they did. Um, I think we're in for a real treat. I'm jealous of anybody who's seen episode 2 and 3 and beyond. Put it that way. It's, but and with Dolney obviously saying he's stayed faithful to the games. Was that in your mind when you were recording for his character to remain faithful to the games, or did you think, right, I need to take this in a slightly different direction?
It was sort of a half and half,
Yeah,
right? Because I wanted to make sure that I captured the sentiment of Dou Niu in the games
yeah,
while still making the part sort of my own,
hmm,
right? I didn't want it to seem like, oh, this guy's just sitting here imitating the voice actor for Dolnio. I wanted it to be recognized as its own medium, because it is. I mean, it's a completely different, art style, etc. It may be the same story, but it's told completely differently.
yeah,
And so I wanted that to be reflected in it. But also, I didn't want to like disrespect the medium. I mean, a voice actor put his heart into playing Dolnio, and so I didn't want to disrespect that. So I made sure that the sentiment of Dou Niu from Shenmue 2 was there, while simultaneously sort of taking it and morphing it into something that was my own, I suppose. I hope I did that anyways. That was sort of the idea that I went in with, anyways.
brilliant. So I'm going to be cheeky and ask this then. What can we expect from the anime version of Dolnio?
Man, you can expect a lot of that darkness that you saw in Londi in the first episode. You can expect to see that in Donu, uh, as well as a lot of that levity of him being just a big joke in the way that he is,
Yeah,
like, massive and always angry and and always screaming.
sounds good. And as we said before, very much larger than life.
Absolutely.
Very much larger than life. Okay, so moving off of Shenmue a bit because I could talk about it all day, and I'm wary of spoilering things as well that are coming up for people who haven't played the games yet.
Right.
And we have some idea as people who have played the games what's coming, but I think we're gonna get a few surprises, but we'll drop that there.
Mhm.
Um, what other projects are you working on at the moment? Is there any that you can talk about, or anything that's due to come out very soon that you've done voiceover for?
Uh, not a ton that I could talk about that I am currently working on, just because I am, of course, currently working on them. But if you are in the Sentai sphere or the Haikyuu bubble, then I'm sure that you understand that Haikyuu season 4 is coming out soon. And although I can't confirm nor deny that I am a part of it, that seems pretty cool, doesn't it? Uh, as well as, I mean, there's a couple things that came out just recently that I do love that I wouldn't mind plugging right now.
Go for
Um,
it.
Vinland Saga, of course, came out a little while ago. I think in October of last year. And the Sentai dub is on Blu-ray, and I think it does amazing. I mean, Mike Himoto, David Wall, everybody does a phenomenal job in it. So if you want to check that out, I highly recommend it. As well as a 3-episode OVA Blu-ray of Alice in Borderland came out, dubbed by Sentai, which I think was incredible. And there's a Netflix live action Alice in Borderland now, and I know that some people are digging Squid Game right now, and it's very akin to
Yeah.
that. Um,
Okay.
and one of my very good friends from college, Jeremy G, one of my best friends, he plays Alice, and he does a absolutely kick-ass job, and I'm super proud of him. So I'm promoting the shit out of that.
Brilliant. Excellent. And I, do you have any particular anime or that you'd love to work on if you had the opportunity? Give me your top three.
Top 3, okay. One Piece, Never Say Die. I love it. God, it's amazing. Oda's incredible. Uh, oh man. Thing is, I've been watching anime since I was like a little kid. I started watching On Toonami, ironically,
Brilliant.
and
Excellent.
it just sort of escalated from there. I mean, I started watching on different stuff. Man, animes that are out right now. Let's see.
Yeah.
I guess. Oh yeah. I wouldn't mind being my hero. I'm just saying. And I would say AOT, but like Bryson's got that one locked down. Bryson's Bryson played Falco in Attack on Titan, and he did an amazing job. Incredible, absolutely incredible. I don't know. I'd like to be in Maiden Abyss. Honestly, that anime is really cool.
You mentioned Toonami actually, and coming from the UK, we used to get that here. We don't unfortunately get it anymore.
Oh
It
no.
it disappeared. I think around 2008. Unfortunately, what was the anime that hooked you into then going? I love this. This is what eventually turned into a career.
Naruto.
My wife loves that. She's a massive anime fan. She's been educating me on
Yeah.
anime. Um, wow. And what other animes did you watch?
Watched a lot of One Piece, Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I watched the first. I think the first anime that I ever saw was the 4 Kids dub of One Piece, where Sanji had a lollipop instead of a cigarette. I think that was the first anime that I ever watched. I was very confused. Nobody did any bad things or said any bad words or anything, and I was very confused by it all. But then I watched the actual thing, and I was like, "Oh, he's been smoking this whole time.
Yeah.
Cool."
Makes sense. Love that. Okay, I think coming into my final question, and I do this with everybody who comes on the show, and I'm grateful for you giving me your time out of your morning to come on and talk about Dolnio and the Shenmue anime. Um, is do you have a closing message for the Shenmue community, either about the anime or what we can expect?
Whew, yeah, sure. I hope that, one, I did it justice, and I hope that I did it well enough for you to accept it, as well as I hope that the Shenmue anime provides another piece of media for you to add to your love of Shenmue. I hope that it increases the amount of endearment that Shenmue has in your heart, because I know that Shenmue has a very faithful and a very large cult following, and I think that that's absolutely wonderful. It's a beautiful story, and I think it's told wonderfully. And I know that Shenmue 3 took a very long time to come out
Yeah, it did.
from Shenmue 2. And so I hope the fact that the Shenmue anime coming out so close to, well, in comparison, so
Yep.
close to Shenmue 3, I hope that gives you hope that there is more on the horizon.
And that is exactly what we're hoping, that the anime can hopefully spearhead more games. That's the dream.
Mhm.
But judging on what I've seen on the anime already, if it had to finish the story, I would take it. I think they've done. I'm basing this on one episode, so we may well have seen a lot more episodes by the time I get this edited and out there. But on
Yeah.
the one episode that I watched on Sunday, and yeah, I was taken aback actually by how well it was done, the attention to the detail and the attention to the source material. I think it's been put together with a lot of love and care, and it shows in my book.
Hey, that's great to hear, honestly.
All that remains is for me to thank Joe for his time on Dojo this afternoon. So thank you, Joe, for joining me. To everybody who's been listening at home to this podcast and interview, thank you as always for taking the time to listen to me. Don't forget to give a subscription on YouTube, follow us all over on our social media channels, and I will catch you again with another interview very shortly. Take care, everyone, and goodbye.
Ah, look at the time.